Hello and welcome to Hearthstone. Silrace here with another starter deck, and this time it is the Mage. Same concept as before, trying to make a workable deck with very little crafting required. There are actually multiple ways you can make a workable Mage deck with just the basic cards required. However, this is my take on it, and the general premise here is to have an early game threat, have just enough control to get through the mid game just fine, to have some strong late game power options when it comes to creatures. Crafting wise, this deck uses 2 Mana Wyrms, altogether 80 dust for the 2 of them, which should be easy enough to get and craft these cards, and they are useful for pretty much every mage deck you're ever going to create. So let's talk about a few card combos. Mana Wyrm is something you should try to mulligan for aggressively with this deck. Mulligan meaning we're trying to get it into your opening hand by dropping other cards to try to get the Mana Wyrm. If you can play turn 1 Mana Wyrm, especially if you are going second and even with a coin to drop a mirror image behind it, with it to buff it and then protect it, or have a Mana Wyrm and a turn 2 Frostbolt as an option to also protect it and help board control, that also all buffs up the Mana Wyrm into a bigger threat, and it also helps protect the Mana Wyrm from retaliation. Mirror Image in general is a card you should not play unless you have something on the board you want to or need to protect. The deck also features a few creatures which have bonus spell damage to help your damage dealing spells. And there is no overload of damage dealing spells, so there is also no overload of actually spell damage bringing creatures. The reason we are bringing Dalaran Mage instead of, let's say, Kobold Geomancer is the fact that Dalaran Mage has 4 health. So you can pretty safely play it on turn 3 and either have it trade for 2 cost minions or survive the 2 and 3 cost minions which don't typically have 4 attack. And there is one Archmage in the deck, Archmage, however you wanna pronounce that one. Partially because it has low attack value at 4, but it has very awkward 7 health, which is difficult for most things to deal with. So either it ends up eating 2 creatures' attacks or possibly even trading for multiple creatures. And on top of that, it does make your turn 7 Flamestrike even stronger. Also, this deck brings 2 Gurubashi Berserkers in it for the sole reason to help you familiarize yourself with the enrage mechanics of this game. Enrage means that whenever something takes damage, it gets a bonus of some sort. And in this case, this is not labeled straight up as an enrage, but whenever this minion takes damage, it gains +3 attack. You can trigger that with your own Fire Blast. You play Gurubashi Berserker, hit it with your own Fire Blast for 1 damage, and suddenly, instead of being 2-7, it becomes 5-6, and it can trade for much bigger things, or more smaller things. If you took a look at the deck list, you probably realized that this deck only runs 1 Arcane Intellect. We do have at our disposal 2 Novice Engineers for extra card draw. However, on testing this deck out, I found out personally that I only really consistently needed 1 Arcane Intellect with this deck. However, it is still a spell, so it would buff up the Mana Wyrm as well on the later turns and so on. So if you really feel like you want the second Arcane Intellect, feel free to adjust the deck to your preferences, drop something else to get the second Arcane Intellect in. Now, with all that said, we are heading towards the end of this video. Let me again say that I don't take any credit for creating this deck, because, well, while I did put it together, someone somewhere must have created the exact copy of this thing. I mean, aside of the 2 worms, we are using only basic cards. So it's pretty easy to come up with absolutely same or very similar kind of a deck. So, like I said, this is just one way to make a workable mage. If you feel like fiddling around with something else, adding or removing something from the deck to fit it to your tastes, go ahead, have fun, right? Thank you very much for watching.